as you can tell from my gray hair, I've been in the business over 40 years. All of that time as an investment banker, and I've probably done, I don't know, 200 deals in the course of my lifetime. Was at some big shops like Smith, Barney, and Payne Weber. Was head of corporate finance at a shop called Gerard Flower Madison for about 10 years, and have mostly focused on smaller private deals. So, and about 7 years ago, I wandered into healthcare, having, as a generalist done healthcare deals in the past, but I love healthcare because it's healthcare and real estate are the two most tax favored industries in the United States. And in addition, as people get older and richer, they have more money to spend on healthcare. So it's an industry that has two separate important winds at its back. And if you can find something that works in that area, you can create a lot of wealth. And for the people that, but there's some downsides to it, which is that if you look at the kind of the personality of the large pharma companies, the people who are at the large pharma companies are in a position where they also understand that they've wandered into an area that has where the equity may have a chance to grow at 50% greater rates or 100% greater rates than for example, being in the food service industry or kind of less glamorous industries. So what happens is you get enormous political attention to, if I can just stay in this company for a long period of time, I'll retire with serious wealth, and you get people that are very risk adverse. So it creates a dynamic in the industry where things don't get examined very early until they've been thoroughly examined. The two deals I'm here today to say two things to you. Number one, I told you so. And number two, I'm going to tell you again. Okay, so you're going to have a second opportunity to listen. Okay, the first deal I'm going to talk about is a deal called Neotex. It's starting about 7 years ago or so. I was the broker dealer that helped to fund this company, and I did it over the course of 7 years by probably making about 10 to 12,000 phone calls, of which maybe 1,500 were returned. And I raised money in chunks as small as $25,000. And what we set out to, we put together a team. The team consisted of Marcel Rosenzweig, who was the former head of cancer at Bristol Myers, Roger Kornberg, who was a Nobel Prize winner, and Asher Nathan, who was a scientist who had earned the respect of both of them in separate projects. And we set out to find a drug that had failed, where somebody had invested significant dollars in it, where it could be repurposed with respect to immunotherapy. And we found a drug called Naptumomab. Nick Travers is here. He's one of our early, he and his dad were one of our early investors. What we found is that when you're going out with to invest in a drug that has failed, you're absolutely toxic and you're absolutely invisible to the venture community if you don't have depth of relationship there, which we had zero depth of relationship with the biotech venture community. And as a result, nobody did their homework, okay? And our experience at the VCs was primarily, once in a while they would open the deck, but they always said, it's way too early. Your drug failed in a phase 3 trial. I'm not going to do the work to figure out why it failed. I don't want to understand the circumstances. I don't want to even look at the deck. I have 15 opportunities with drugs that have never failed. And if I take on a drug that failed, I have to, with a never failed drug, I could be wrong, but not stupid. With a failed drug, I could be both. I could look both wrong and stupid. So the dynamic was such that the VCs would not take a look. The reason why I say that I told you so is that I wound up through a bit of persistence and translating the story into what I call a Mark Twain version, so it was understandable by laymen. Ultimately wound up raising $85 million for the company. We got Larry Ellison to come in as an investor, and we set about retesting the drug. And now I'm very pleased to say that it looks to me like the drug is well on its way to success. We're conducting a phase 2 trial with our drug. I will take 2 seconds to describe the mechanism of action. basically, we take a fragment of the DNA of Staphylococcus, and we use a piece of Velcro to attach it to the surface of tumors, and it attracts the T cells that know how to recognize staph into the tumor microenvironment, and they start to nibble away at the cancer as well as the other more generic T cells. It turns out that our approach as an adjunct therapy complements the three major modalities of treating cancer with therapy, the drug therapeutics. The phase 2 trial that we're conducting, we've been so far treated. We use docetaxel, which is a chemo drug, for patients that have flunked chemo and patients that have flunked the checkpoint inhibitor. Out of the first 13 patients that we evaluated them about 3 months ago, and we had a 54% disease control rate. I'm pleased to say that subsequently we reevaluated those patients a few weeks ago. We now have a 69% disease control rate, which means that the tumors have either stopped growing or that they are shrinking. In addition, we've demonstrated that our drug is safe to use with checkpoint inhibitor, and in a phase 1 trial with checkpoint inhibitors, we were able to have a portion of the patients who flunked the checkpoint. The technical terms were refractory to checkpoint. Flunked checkpoint had a response with both a checkpoint and our drug. That I'm happy to share more information under NDA with people in the audience. Sure. I don't. Okay. And then I've been asked to speak up a little bit. So
I think the talk is that your laptop is blocking the microphone.
How's that? Better?
Yep.
Okay. So.
Oh, Camille, you're echoing.
Okay. Are we?
No, you're good.
Is it good?
You can turn off the microphone.
Okay. So at any rate,
Let me do this. I can do it here.
I'm going to hold off for 1 sec. Sounds like it's better.
Yep.
Okay. So, and the third fighting staph are 600% more potent. We think that we have preclinical data suggesting that we can make CAR T work on solid tumors. CAR T represents about 100 million of value in the marketplace. They do not work. It's a technique that does not work at all in solid tumors. We're in discussions with a major about jointly testing it so we can demonstrate that it works in solid tumors. We think if that happens, that there'll be a significant step up in the value of the company. So those are the three major modalities. We're out in the market looking for $50 million. I welcome inquiry, and I'm happy to talk to anybody. I am a cancer slut. I will talk to anybody about a way that I can make progress.
Do you have a desire to show the?
Yeah, let's talk. The Neotex deck is a very short deck because it is the "I told you so" deck. Okay, so we have a nice cover page. Then let's go to let's see the entire rest of the deck.
I'm just trying to put on slide 1 second.
Get it on slide 2.
Okay.
Okay. So the next slide. This is a slide where we think we have 3 trials that we want to fund. If you unfortunately get a non-small cell lung cancer and chemo does not work for you and checkpoint does not work for you, you are the technical term is SOL. You are out of luck. Okay, so that is a vast unmet medical need. Our independent market advisor has advised us that if we nail that area and we can be a second line drug in non-small cell lung cancer, it's a $12 billion potential market for us. On esophageal, there's nothing that really works well on esophageal. It doesn't work well with checkpoint. We think we have cause to believe that it would work for us with checkpoint. We have MD Anderson and Sloan Kettering jockeying for who gets to be the lead investigator on the esophageal trial. And on CAR T, as I said, we're in discussions. We think that if we can make CAR T work on solid tumors, it's a $6 billion opportunity. So the upside is, looking at the industry, we think down the road that there's $10 billion upside, and this is a deal that has the same ultimate potential for giant returns. Of course, it's biotech. Every email I send out with this has a caveat. You can lose all your money in biotech. You can have 9 out of 13 patients respond well, and the next 20 don't. So it's obviously a very risky deal. But at this point, we've been able to attract a lot of serious talent, including the former head of clinical oncology at Bayer AG, who recently joined the company and took an enormous pay cut to do that. So that's a deal that I showed everybody at a much smaller level a long time ago. That's why I say I told you so. Question?
Yes. So what's your time frame in terms of when you think you'll be through all trials?
Well, I'll give you one sneak preview. We think that we could be on the phase 2 lung cancer trial. We think that we could demonstrate absolutely compelling data for going into a registrational trial by the end of 2023, as in next year. Okay, registrational trials can be worth if you have very good non-randomized data from your phase 2 trial, but suggesting that you have a clean shot at a 12 billion revenue opportunity. To a large pharma, that trial could be worth $500 million, $1 billion, $2 billion to be partners on the registrational trial. I'm going to switch now to. I don't want to hog all the time. Brian has joined me, and I want to make sure he gets what he's entitled to. So I'm going to switch to a deal where I think I'm presenting with something that is now at the same stage that Neotex was years ago when I showed it to you. This is a deal that comes out of Yale University. The name of the company is Petrogen. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead and let's start this. So everybody sees that, right?
I'm going to do right now.
Okay. So Petrogen is a company that comes out of Yale University. There's a scientist there named Demetrius Braddock. He discovered go to the next page, please. He discovered a enzyme called ENPP1, which is an enzyme that is involved in the up and down regulation of mineralization. Mineralization is one of the when you have gum disease, one of the things that you do is you don't build your teeth enough. There are 34 million Americans that suffer from gum disease, periodontal disease. There is no meaningfully effective drug to treat periodontal disease. It's the most prominent therapeutic for it now is a drug called Arrestin. What Arrestin does is it you have 600 forms of bacteria in your mouth. Arrestin's an antibiotic. It slightly impedes those bacteria. Typically, gum disease is 5 millimeters of gap between your gum and your tooth. Arrestin, on average, across 750 patients, was shown to reduce that gap by 0.2 of a millimeter. 0.2 of a millimeter is less than 1/100th of an inch. I challenge anybody in this room to hold their fingers apart 1/100th of an inch. You can't do it. And so, notwithstanding that, Arrestin's had revenues of 50 to 100 million. At its peak, we think it had revenues of 140 million. We think if there was something genuine. Well, it's minocycline, but it's a very blasé drug. We have 7 dentists in the deal who are all embarrassed that they ever prescribed Arrestin, because if you give it to your patient, 90 days later they come back and they say, well, yeah, I'm in the same place I was. Why did you do this? Well, the $100 per tooth may have had something to do with it. So we think that there's a chance that we can make a meaningful impact on this. That instead of and like I said, Arrestin sold for 430 million when it had perhaps a 2% market share. We think if all we do is help build cementum back and help the gum to reattach at 1 or 2 millimeters or 3 millimeters of repair on the attachment of the gum, we think we can have an 8% market share, a 10% market share, in which case we could expect to sell at a price that's several times what Arrestin sold at its peak. Please go to the next slide. So, and next, actually, just go to the second thing that I sent you. Okay. So while he's looking for that, some, we're going to go to the third,
You want a different deck?
the third email, yeah.
Not Modality Medical?
No, not Modality Medical.
Okay, let me just go to the third one.
He's taking my time. He's going to take my presentation now.
No, I'm dancing as fast as I can, Brian. We're going to be done in 2 minutes, okay?
Okay.
So we were very, very excited recently because we got confirmation about,
This,
yes, show that.
give me a second.
So we did internal studies at the company where we found that we took 4 rodents and we showed that the rodents were that we not only built up cementum, which it was just instrumental in getting the gum to reattach to the tooth, but we also built up bone density. Okay, the most important thing about holding on to a tooth is if you have greater bone density, you're more likely to hold on to. You're more likely to have the tooth stay in its place and not have to spend $5,000 for an implant. Which is why we think there's a viable market for it. Marty, let's, okay. One of the things, the circle, this is from the paper, the peer-reviewed published paper in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research, okay? And that's my sloppy handwriting circling the most important slide in the paper, which shows that if you prevent, so ENPP1 suppresses mineralization. If you suppress the suppressor, you wind up with more mineralization, and the teeth of these mice were 50% stronger. Let's go to the next one.
The next slide?
The next slide in
Okay, that's a different document.
No, yeah.
Let me go to the next document.
Okay, so what the next slide shows is that there's evidence that we increase cementum from the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research. There's evidence that we increase bone density. There's evidence that we increase dentin, which is the center of the tooth, the heart of the tooth, and there's evidence that we increase enamel. Okay, so like my other biotech deals, my investors have about, yeah, let's go to that. My investors have all, I'm looking for investors to put in $100,000, $250,000. We've raised about $3 million. We'd like to take it up to $4 or $5 million. We'd like to do that in the next couple of weeks. We anticipate that after the company is ready to start negotiating with the FDA for the outline of its phase 1, that instead of being valued at 15 million pre-money, it'll be valued at 30 million pre-money. So this is a valuation that's in place for a very short period of time. Anybody that is interested in contacting me, I'll be forwarding to you the materials out of the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research. I've circled the key paragraphs there that talk about increasing cementum, increasing enamel, and increasing bone density.
2 questions.
Go ahead.
ENPP1, is that a product of the infectious?
No, the ENPP1 is an enzyme that it's above my pay grade to describe it, but it's an enzyme. It's an enzyme that is basically is implicated in upregulating and downregulating mineralization. So the genesis of all of this was that there was the scientists started out looking at children that have no ability to make ENPP1, and those children have excess mineralization in their arteries and their heart. They tend to die in their young years. So that's
secondly, the agent itself that you have identified.
Yes, so there's some generic agents that suppress ENPP1, but we set out to do a search for the drug that could do it optimally. So we've been working with
applied topically or
yes, it'd be applied topically, actually in the pockets of the gum and take it from there. Yeah, so we think it's going to have de minimis safety issues because it's just such small amounts that we'll be using. So anyway, this is a deal where we think that if it succeeds comparably or better than Arrestin, it should be it could have $1 billion exit on humans in the U.S. The rest of the world would be comparable valuation, and we shouldn't forget about the potential for application to dogs, which could be a giant market in and of itself. So,
Another question? Do you have another question?
Oh,
make one up.
I
No,
was
it's okay.
just moving. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. So anyway, so I'm
how old is the company?
the company's about 2 years old. And
So it's not long in the tooth, so.
no, it's not. So I'm gonna let John get away with that well-timed pun. So at any rate, these are both these are both righteous deals. I've been living with them. Nobody's laid a glove on them in conversation with the market, which is what I love about capitalism. If you have a bad deal, the market will tell you have a bad deal. The market's been telling me I have a good deal. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Brian. Brian has a deal that I think is an equally righteous deal, and in these weird times, I would just, for those of you who are here representing family offices, I would just stress to you that these small biotech deals are, Jim Grant's been an investor in some of my deals based on the idea that small biotech is a lottery ticket. It's completely uncorrelated. I'm not asking you to invest the rent money, but I do think this is a good use of beer money.
Thank you.
But I have one question. Okay.
What is the major technical risk?
Well, the major technical risk is we have to formulate the drug, and it has, and what we observe in mice may not happen in humans, and that is true for that's truism for all of biotech. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Brian, so he still has some time.
You got about 25 minutes.
Too much time. I'm going to.
Keep working on it.
All right.
I'm going to let Brian go, and then maybe we'll have a
Why don't
moment
you
for
guys
questions
switch
later on.
seats,
We'll do it this way, I guess, okay.
And Brian, should I run the other
Yeah,
doc?
the short form, yeah.
Medality?
Modality Medical.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll do 2 minutes on myself. I'm a little atypical. I'm the CEO of Modality Medical. But prior to that, I spent 17 years at Bear Stearns in their corporate finance department. I was a senior managing director there. 96, I left Bear Stearns. I started my own investment banking firm, doing a lot of private transactions, mostly capital raising, M&A. That kind of led into principal investing. I invested in this company, Medality, in December of 2015, went on the board and got continually more active involved with the company till I became CEO about a year ago, being involved with the company. What I'd like to present, we are a very unique company, and on the first point is a very key point, is that we have a patented state-of-the-art platform technology. So this is not a one-trick pony. We do many things. The company actually had its roots in the technology was invented by Dr. Mark Andrew, who's an ophthalmologist, and back in the late, I guess, maybe early 2000s or so, late 1995, 96, he invented this technology to remove cataracts from the eye. So this is a very minimally invasive, very soft and gentle technique to remove cataracts. That migrated around 2007 to trying to do fat grafting. And when we came into the company, it was doing liposuction, using this technology in liposuction. We are now focused in on diabetes, type 2 diabetes. We started really focusing on type 2 diabetes in 2016. Why diabetes? Because diabetes is a global pandemic. Over 400 million people in the world have diabetes. It's CDC estimates that there's so many different numbers around because it's hard to get a handle on how many people die each year from diabetes because it gives rise to a lot of other metabolic diseases. But CDC has a number, 11% of the population between 20 and 79 died of diabetes-related causes. So it's a very serious market. It's a very big market. It's a very serious problem. And there are no real solutions to this problem today. The literature is full of people, you have a lot of metformin and there's other pill injections to take, but people do not stick to these regimens over a period of time. And they gradually get worse and worse and worse. And until they're on insulin, and things really go south at that point. So the problem is diabetes. There's no known solution. There was a lot written in literature about the fact that one of the contributing causes of type 2 diabetes is visceral fat in the mesentery. And the mesentery is now it's an organ, actually, organ 2 years ago. It's in front of our stomach, and visceral fat is deep-seated fat. All of the animal studies that were done to try to remove visceral fat from the mesentery, and this is really a very important differentiation for our company, ended up, because the visceral fat is deep-seated fat, there are a lot of arteries, veins, and the like surrounding this fat. The traditional surgeon would cut into one of these, and the animals would bleed out and die. So it wasn't until July of 2016 when we did a baboon. We were doing a non-human primate study in San Antonio. Mark went down with a bariatric surgeon, and they got the first baboon, and they removed about 15 to 20% of the visceral fat from this baboon. And within days, the guy was out chasing female baboons again and eating bananas, and life was good. So that was a really important milestone for us in terms of where we were going with the company. And what'd you say?
Sign up.
In any event, so we carried that forward. And in October of 16, we did 2 more baboons. We took out 75%, 70 to 75% of the visceral fat. Those guys, same result. Early 17, NIH came in, gave us funding to fund the rest of our baboon trial. And those results came out really, really good. We did 10 baboons. 4 of the baboons, again, for us, was a big milestone. 4 of the baboons were insulin resistant. After the surgery, probably within 10 or 15 days after that surgery, those baboons were insulin sensitive, and they had lost quite a bit of weight. That really propelled us. We've been talking to some strategic investors, partners, really corporations at that point, and they all said, look, don't finish your baboon trial. You've proven it works. Move to humans, because we want to see human data. And that led us to where we are now. We got the FDA approval. We got an IDE in February of 2019. We got an IDE. I'm not staying on track here, just so I can move along. In 2019, we got our IDE. We got the IRB from the University of Texas Healthcare Center in August of 19. We did our first patient in November of 2019. Then COVID came, and we all no elective surgeries, and our clinical trial went on hold for quite a bit of time until we found a solution, found another little hospital in San Antonio that our bariatric surgeon had practiced at, and it was called the Foundation Hospital. It was a 30-bed hospital. Because it was so small, it wasn't designated a COVID hospital, and he was doing surgeries there. So I said to him, hey, Rich, this is a crazy idea. Why don't we do the surgery here? And it's only across the street from the University of Texas where all the testing is being done. Ended up talking to the CEO of the hospital, and he said, great, we can do this. And we then went on and we're doing our surgeries at the Foundation Hospital. We've now done, in this clinical trial we're doing, it was a 10 to 12 person trial. We have done 12 surgeries, although no, it's not. It's an open incision. I have a video. I'm going fast because I like to show you guys the video. We have a video of the procedure, actually. It's about a small incision about this big, and what happens is the bariatric surgeon will go in laparoscopically, look around, make sure everything's okay. Then they just pull out the bowel, which is very interesting. It looks like a Polish sausage. Just pull it out. It's not bloody at all. So if anybody's squeamish, don't worry. This is not a squeamish surgery. They pull it out, and then they take the key to our technique is this device has 3 parts to it. There's a console, there's a cannula, and then what we call a sterile treatment kit. The console pumps warm saline solution through the cannula. The cannula is rounded on edge, and it's target specific. So the cannula goes to the point. You'll see this in the video. You'll see the yellow visceral fat, and the cannula goes right to that yellow visceral fat, and the console pumps an algorithm of warm saline solution pressure, and it sends out this warm saline solution, disaggregates the fat, and then sucks it out using the Venturi into a canister. And that's how the fat's removed. We don't cut it. It doesn't touch anything else around it.
How does the fat actually migrate across the membrane?
No, it comes out through the cannula.
So you have to penetrate into the mesenteric.
Oh, you have to take. Yeah, you take it out. Yeah, you'll see the mesenteric. You'll see it's like cobwebs, or another doctor says it's kind of like I don't know. Cobwebs is a good way to look at it. You have all these veins and everything. You have the yellow fat underneath all the veins and arteries.
But the fat isn't hanging out the other.
No. You got to go in. That's why. Yeah, and that's why.
So you have to penetrate the membrane to get to the fat.
Yeah, definitely.
But
definitely.
there is an internal small incision.
There is a small incision.
Not only in the abdominal wall, but in the actual mesenteric.
No, No.
We're gonna show a
You'll
video.
see the
of it
video.
happening.
You'll see the video.
So let's not ask those questions about specifics, but we'll get into approvals and things like that.
And so.
Demonstration here on the table.
The-
No, we're not, we are not, okay. John, no more jokes.
All right.
You've done your allotment.
I didn't sleep last night. I'm sorry.
Andrew, you had a question.
I was at the emergency room.
Andrew, you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting to see, but how does removing the fat affect pancreatic insulin production?
Well, I have somebody who can talk to you about that question. He's a
Well,
doctor.
that's
We have a
all
number of
good.
doctors on, we have a strong team of medicine doctors on our, we have endocrinologists, we have other surgeons on it. They can address that question. I wouldn't really attempt to answer it.
Positive feedback, fat cells. That's the best way, yeah.
And what's the difference between this and like, these surgeries that they do now for, reducing the size of the stomach and things like that? or-
It's not like that. No, it's not at all. It's much different than that.
This-
And Andrew,
this
if you
slide?
have, give me your detail, if you have some, we have,
No,
we
keep
can
going.
address that
Sorry.
question. I'm sorry. The clinical trial we're doing, I'm trying to go a little quickly here. Our cohort are people that have BMIs between 30 and 40, A1Cs between 8 and 10%, and they've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes within the last 10 years, which we've learned is a little bit of a problem because most people have, not most, but a lot of people have type 2 diabetes before they even know it. So they could have it 3, 4, 5 years before they have it. Somebody who's been diagnosed within 10 years could be a beta cell burnout already. And this is not a procedure focused in on that late stage type 2 diabetes. We feel we're going to be much more focused in on the earliest stage of the disease. And that's one of our focuses.
And you chose not to include people with higher BMIs because of the AE rate in that population?
No, the FDA said they have these other procedures available for that. And we were at 35 and it was really hurting our recruitment. So we asked them to go up to 40 and they said, you got the lap band, you have other bariatrics, but not for type 2 diabetes. It was for obesity. So anyway,
The people who consent to the procedure are consenting for treatment of type 2 diabetes?
yes, they have to be diagnosed. I mean, they have to have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes within the last 10
And
years.
I can assume that insurance pays for this. I mean, it's always my question, right? Insurance pays for this?
No, we're paying for it.
No, I'm saying, once it gets accepted.
Oh, yeah.
as a
Oh,
procedure,
oh.
insurance will pay for it.
Well, we work with a group called MICRA, it's a CRO down in Washington, DC. And we are in the process of going out to talk to the payers and endocrinologists for that very question. It doesn't have a code. It's a new procedure, so without a code. And we're about to launch that because that's an important question to address, the reimbursable aspect of this.
Yep.
So of the 11 patients we've had, or 12 patients we've had one adverse event, no serious adverse events. The one we had was patient number 1, was constipated before the surgery, didn't tell anybody, had the surgery, went home, felt worse, it got worse. He went back to the hospital 2 days later and he developed a mild case of ileus. They kept him in overnight, gave him a lot of fluids. He went home the next day and never looked back. Other than that, we have no issues at all. Our DSMB, we meet quarterly. They've blessed us to go on to the pivotal trial. And we've started discussions with the FDA for a pivotal trial. Although it's a small trial with 10 to 12 patients, and we were living in a world. 2 of our patients that had pretty good results just fell with COVID. And I mean, this is real life, right? So one of them, who's really a star, her A1C went from 9.3% to 5.4%. She has COVID, and now because of her medications, her blood sugar went up, and now they think they're gonna have to put her on insulin. Well, if we put her on insulin, there's a good chance we can keep her in the trial for safety, but we're gonna lose the efficacy aspect of that. And so the FDA has given us permission to do 2 more patients, and we're actually recruiting right now. We have a pool of 6 that we're recruiting to do 2 more patients on that. So we are doing a $5 million round. It's a D round. The company has a pre-money value of $37 million. We do have a term sheet. Was this distributed to everybody? This document?
Yes.
It was, okay. So the last page of this document has a term sheet. We've probably raised about $1 million. Nick is also an investor in this company. He's a good representative of
The only guy who does his homework.
And here's the term sheet. You all have that, but it's as I say, it's a $37 million pre-money value, up from the pre-money value in the last, the post-money value in the last round was about $28 million. We've accomplished a lot. We have some goodies in there. We have some warrants for early investors and so on in this round. And
What's the cost of the surgery? Like, what is your anticipated cost?
no, it's a good question. We pay, I can tell you what we're paying now, and that's the best guess we have. We pay $15,000 per surgery. That's each patient costs us $150,000 in the trial. Surgery itself is $15,000. In terms of an exit, I'm going to deal with this point, and then we can go to the video real quickly. We are not looking to go public with this company. Our idea is to sell it to a strategic. We have a list of them. I don't want to go into names, but they're probably a lot of obvious medical device companies that we've been talking to for 3 or 4 years, building up a level of credibility, saying what we're going to do, and then delivering. Actually, people are pretty thrilled with our results, our milestones on our clinical trial. The FDA wanted a reduction in A1C of 1.2%. We're finding that if you take out at least 60% of the fat, the visceral fat, you get better results. That group of people in our trial have an average reduction of A1C of 1.4%. Time and range, and that's
What percent, sorry?
I'm sorry,
What percent?
1.4% reduction, and
From what base?
1.2. Well, no, it
No,
doesn't
I
make
know.
the base doesn't make
No,
a
I know.
difference. It's not. It's the A1C. So your A1C is,
It's A1C.
yeah. So if you have a 9 and we got 1.4 less 9 is where you are, and everybody gets a baseline, and then you test all along.
What kind of intellectual property is around this?
Very good, very good, very good IP.
And let me ask you, what
Okay.
happens
All right.
long term after the procedure?
Well, that's a really good question. It's a $64,000 question, if you will. And the way I can address that is that
You can send it in restricted stock.
I'm sorry.
You can send the 64 grand in restricted.
Yeah, yeah.
restricted stock.
But
He's not humble.
but we did do the 4 baboons that went from insulin to insulin resistance. We actually measured them. We did an MRI on them 15 months after the surgery, and there was no regrowth of this. There was no regrowth of visceral fat in the 15 months. And for a human, that would be about maybe 3.5 years, 4 years, based upon the relative age difference between a baboon and a person of longevity. Patient number 1 that was done November 2019, we had an MRI done on him 12 months later. He had no regrowth. What we've done, though, we've gone back and amended our protocol with the FDA, and we've asked for permission to test these patients 24 and 36 months after. It's a 12-month trial. We extended it for a select group of patients, and they're going to be patients that have to consent to that, but we'll have it. They're going to have at least 70% of the visceral fat removed, and they'll go into this extended testing period to try to address this question, because you're not going to do this every year.
You expect that you have similar results to like lap band or something like that, right?
We think better.
Great.
Well, but Lap-Band doesn't. No, don't. People do this all the time. We are not a fat reduction. We're not a fat reduction company. We're type 2 diabetes, and diabetes. When you reduce your weight, you can improve your type 2 diabetes. So we aren't really compared to Lap-Band because we have a different focus.
What about pre-diabetes? Like, I mean, if there's
That's
so many million diabetics, how
80
many pre-diabetics are there?
80 million pre-diabetics
In the United States
In the
alone.
United States alone, there's 27 million diabetics in the United States alone, and the
80 million.
literature says that within 5 to 7 years, 40% of that 80 million would convert to full-blown type 2 diabetes.
40%. Wow.
And that's an important part of our focus. We think that's the area we want to focus on, those the pre-diabetics and those guys that are around 7.5%. I would like personally, we're designing a pivotal trial right now, and rather than going from 8 to 10%, I would love to go from 7 to 8%, because now I can hold the 1.2% that the FDA wants as an endpoint. But now I'm going to get, if I achieve that 1.2 on somebody who's 7, they're below. They're not a diabetic anymore, and the numbers would show
And
that.
Brian, just for frame of reference, what A1C level defines type 2 diabetes, and what defines
Sure.
a normal healthy
Yeah.
person?
Under 5.7% is a normal healthy person. Pre-diabetic is 5.7 to 6.4, and over 6.5 and over is diabetic.
Can we
do
watch
the video? Yeah,
Can
let's
they watch the video?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
please.
now you guys just speak over because we can't project volume,
Okay,
so.
I'll do the best I can, and I'm sorry we have no popcorn, but you know,
If you got fat from the popcorn, we would do surgery, we'll fill it in. I'm just kidding.
I will also tell you, the only surgery I've been in, I've been out and I wasn't there. So when they dragged me into this to watch, it's important. The nurses were kind enough to put blankets on the floor for me, just in case. But it was okay.
You threw up or you fell?
No, oh yeah.
Passed out?
And yeah, I didn't do either. In fact, at one point I got so interested in it, the bariatric surgeon said to me, "Will you move away? I have to get in over here." I was right at the table. So, Rich, well, you won't be seeing Rich. The PI in this procedure or in the trial is Ralph DeFranzo. He's a well-known ophthalmologist. This is Rich, Dr. D'Amico. Rick is a plastic surgeon. He's on our board. He actually used the equipment when early days on the liposuction and for fat grafting. We can just move. We're going to miss the longest part of this is the interviews, but we can get into the pictures.
Okay,
of the
one second here.
procedure. This was in November. Now that's a picture of the mesentery, the yellow fat. The yellow is the visceral fat in the mesentery. And the bariatric surgeon, Rich Peterson, is pointing that out right now. You can just keep going.
I had a couple of questions from the audience.
Yeah.
What prevents you from using your platform to address the cosmetic market where there's no other medical condition like diabetes, number one? And would you license your technology to a company that addresses a cosmetic market?
We were in that market. We put that was the liposuction market. We were in autologous fat transfer as
Okay.
well as the fat grafting. It's a very competitive marketplace.
Sucks.
Well, I didn't want to say those words, but we got lucky on the visceral fat. We were transitioning, but we're actually talking to a major company right now who would like to license the technology from us. It's complicated because you use the same device, and we have a small team, and I want everybody focused on this procedure. It's a good market for us. That's Dr. Peterson, our bariatric surgeon, the lead bariatric surgeon, explaining that he's never seen anything like this before. This is truly disruptive and revolutionary in terms of being able to go in there and remove visceral fat.
So it's an enhancement on a surgery type.
Sorry?
It's an enhancement on a surgery type.
Yeah. And it's a surgery that he says it's easier to do than a hernia operation. And ultimately the general surgeon will be able to do something like this.
Is this it?
Yep, that's it. There you go. You can see the yellow visceral fat, and that's the cannula. And he's going in there. The console's pumping warm saline solution, and he is.
What I don't understand is how does the fat emerge from?
Well, there's an aperture in the cannula, and it goes through the aperture in the
Where's the
cannula.
tip?
So
the
it
cannula.
penetrates the membrane of the momentum.
Yes. Yeah.
So they have to be conscious of infection.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
The
Very good.
cannula was the light in that last video?
I think that
The
was just
the
like.
tip of the tip of the cannula? I didn't see the tip of
You can go to the next one because we're not going to be able to hear this.
So
This
these
is the assistant surgeon. He's so we can move on here. And that's DeFranzo. He's actually considered one of the world's leading endocrinologists. He's our PI, and you can see just by looking at him, he's been in this business a long time, but he's brilliant and difficult to deal with. Very difficult.
Probably use a procedure too.
Yeah, but if it's starting up here.
I live with a medical doctor for the last 15 years, and she tells me that certain type of doctors have certain senses of humor that you have to learn to adjust to.
Yeah.
I imagine he's one of them.
Well, he's very quick at telling everybody they're jackasses. And they don't know what they're talking about.
I think I've seen that before.
Good bedside manner. We can go to the next one.
Okay, I think that's it.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, it's the
Oh, well,
video.
then, well, yeah. So most of the video is this interview with actually Ralph, and you saw the important one is you saw the mesentery and you saw the fat come out. Nick, you're not sure about something. So, in a word, we do have a revolutionary device. We are the first ones in the market. We have a lot of interest from strategics. From a timeline perspective, we're talking to the FDA about our pivotal trial. We would expect to do the pivotal trial late 23, early 24, based upon the track we're on right now. Micker is our CRO. We have our endocrinologist is from Penn. You know, we have a small team, but it's a good focused and smart team. And we watch our pennies, and we're doing it, as I said, we're doing a $5 million round. That round will take us up until the pivotal trial. The pivotal trial is going to be a lot more expensive. And at that point, we would envision that we've actually started having some conversations with some of the strategics already.
So what kind of IP covers the design of your system?
Is it copyrighted,
Yeah, it's
trademark,
trademark,
patented?
it's patented,
You have patents on the,
on the cannula, the STK. We have Nick is,
Well, you have,
we have three
patent-
basic,
patent on method and also on device.
right.
or Apparatus patent.
And we have provisional patents now to tighten up even more. We've gone through a lot of what from the patents are so important here.
but have you looked at other markets apart from Momentum? I mean, for example,
No, we don't look, Momentum
you know,
doesn't
in the
work, by the way.
cosmetic side, they-
No, Momentum doesn't work. They started looking at visceral fat in the Momentum and didn't work. We're in the mesentery.
that's
There's
a-
also visceral fat around the kidneys.
Yes,
That's the other depot.
but they're also cosmetic, I mean, around the face and stuff, where the liposuction devices are improved.
Well, we were doing that.
Retrovulvar,
We were doing that. We were doing that in our liposuction day. We were doing the small,
yeah?
and we were doing autologous fat transfer. We were doing large scale fat grafting and the you know, the facial. Guy by the name of, you were Penn?
I was a Penn undergrad.
Oh, okay, all right. So Dr. Bucky is a plastic surgeon at Penn who does all the facial stuff. He loves it. He's very angry at us right now because we pulled that
Pulled it out.
receipt, that application off the market for the time being, because we're a small company and we really wanted to focus in on this type 2 diabetes market, which is so very, very important.
Fantastic.
Very good.
Well, listen, guys, great job. And we have circulated your deck. We're gonna circulate it again. There's been a lot of people, we had actually circulated it with Eric. And we have about a dozen people download it before you guys even showed up. So,
Well, let me just add, we have a longer deck. I have a 25-page comprehensive deck, which really goes through a lot of information that was just going to be too much for this call.
I think it's
And I'll
best just to
send it
work
you.
with this shorter deck,
Yeah.
and people will ask you for the longer one if they
Okay,
have
yeah,
more
oh,
interest.
okay,
Yeah,
fair
it's
enough.
always better to do briefs.
Okay, good.
So,
Not to be outdone, I have a 48-page deck if anybody wants.
Yeah, but
it's
it's
all
two
handwritten.
deals, it's 2 deals.
So, yeah, always happy to have Eric Singer, who is one of the most